All right, this is going to be the last video for Notes 4, and it's going to be a quick-ish recap of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. All right, so part A and part B, you're adding and subtracting. For these two pieces, right, adding fractions and subtracting fractions, you have to have a least common denominator. You got to have a common denominator. So how do you find it? Well, I need the least common multiple for what you have as your denominators, which is 3 and 5. So if you know what it is off the top of your head, awesome. If you're not sure, feel free to write out the multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. Keep going if you need to. Separately, I'm going to write out the multiples of 5. 5, 10, 15. I'm going to stop right there because 15 is on both my lists. So I need to now rewrite both of these fractions with a denominator of 15. So the question becomes, how do you get from 3 to 15? What did you have to multiply by? So that would be the number 5. Well, if you do that to the denominator, you have to mirror it into the numerator. So 5 times 2. All right, so 2 over 3. The original fraction here has been rewritten now as 10 over 15. I wrote it right, said it wrong. Shocking. All right, so then how do you get from 5 to 15? Well, you had to multiply by 3. Do that to the top. So 4 times 3 is 12. Once you're at this point that both fractions have been rewritten with a common denominator, the common denominator is not going to change, and you're just going to add, in this case, add the two numerators. So 10 plus 12 makes, whoops, why did I write 12 in the denominator? I don't even know. Probably because I was looking at that other numerator. All right, that should be over 15, not over 12. My apologies. And then again, still going to add, that part I wasn't wrong on. 10 plus 12 makes 22. All right, 22 over 15 is the final answer here. So that's how you wow, I'm having issues today. That's how you add fractions. Now, part B, we're going to have to do a lot of the same stuff because when you subtract, you have a common denominator. However, before we even start getting into common denominators, I want to take these two mixed fractions. They're called mixed fractions because they're a whole number and a fraction, whole number and a fraction. And I want to turn them into improper fractions, where the numerator is larger than the denominator. So how do you do that? Well, you take your whole number times the denominator and then take that and add it to the numerator. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 1 makes 11. Keep the same denominator. So 11 over 2. Minus, do the same thing for the second fraction here. So whole number times the denominator, and then we're going to add that numerator. So that's 9 plus, so we're going to have 11 over 3. Which, all right, once we're in this format, and I need to figure out, right, least common multiple for 2 and 3. So if you know it, awesome. If you need to write out your multiples, write out your multiples. I do happen to know the least common multiple for 2 and 3 is 6. So rewriting with 6 and 6. And then taking a look at what we've got to do to get to that. So you had 2, you turned it into a 6. That means you had to have multiplied by 3. So do the same thing to the numerator. We've got 33. All right, for the second fraction, you had a 3, but we rewrote it as a 6, so that means it had to have multiplied by 2. Same thing on the top, so 22. So we've got 33 over 6 minus 22 over 6. The common denominator is going to stay 6. This time I wrote it right. I swear, 6. And then if we take 33 minus 22, we're going to get 11 over 6. So that's the deal if you have to add or subtract fractions, right? Take the mixed fractions, make them improper, do the rewrite step, right, with that common denominator, whatever the least common multiple is, and then make sure you're changing it appropriately to change the numerators as well, and then either add the numerators or subtract the numerators, but notice that the common denominator stays the common denominator. Now, if given the option between adding and subtracting fractions or multiplying fractions, folks, I'm going to take multiplying fractions any day, because part C here, I don't need a common denominator at all in the slightest. It's kind of nice. You could multiply straight across. So 5 times 6, 8 times 7, and then see what kind of fraction you have and reduce it. Then, or, I'm going to go with the or part here, which is I'm going to see if I can take either of these two numerator values and simplify them with those denominator values. So if I start with 5, 5 is not going to divide into 8 or 7. No, that's not going to happen. All right, 6. 6 isn't going to divide into 8 or 7. However, both 6 and 8 are divisible by 2. So if I take 6 divided by 2, I get 3. 8 divided by 2 gets me 4, which has now made my numbers smaller and a little easier to work with. So if I then look at 3, well, 3 isn't going to go into 4, 3 isn't going to go into 7. So at this point, I'm done simplifying, and now I'm going to multiply straight across. So 5 times 3 makes 15, 4 times 7 is 28, and 15 over 28 cannot be reduced. Folks, that's your answer to part C there. All right, multiplying fractions. Now, part D says we're going to divide, but, well, we're really not. You never divide fractions. You're going to take your first fraction, you are going to multiply it by the reciprocal, big word that means flip the fraction over, the reciprocal of the second fraction. So 7 tenths, still 7 tenths here, divided by becomes multiplication, and then 4 over 5 as a fraction becomes 5 over 4. So you're multiplying by the reciprocal. And now it's multiplication. You can do the same thing as the last one. You could multiply straight across. So 7 times 5, 10 times 4, and then reduce. I like to see if I can reduce first. So let's see, 7, 10, and 4 are not going to work. However, 5 and 10, I can divide out a factor of 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Cool, I have factored as much as I can, simplified as much as I can. So let's see, multiplying straight across, 7 times 1 is 7, and 2 times 4 makes 8. 7 over 8 is my final answer. All right, so that's a little bit of review on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions, also converting mixed fractions to improper. Folks, let me know if you have any questions or concerns.